what it was like I actually lived around the corner at 10th and Clinton with my dad during the summers, and this is the early 80s. I'd see like all these punk rock kids going by, and one day followed them to a show. It was like around the corner at Love Hall. So it started like that, and then like he got into stuff with my dad was also a DJ, and when I was real young, I listened to, you know, Kiss, Alice Cooper, Black Sabbath, early metal stuff. Like this is going back from like 3rd grade. It's the 70s. So to my dad, being a DJ, punk rock sounded like metal to him. So he would just give me this stuff. I'd get Stooges, Dead Boys, Ramones, 7 Inches, Sex Pistols, stuff like that. So it just evolved from there. And then coming back and forth from Lancaster County to here, you know, you meet people in between. There's the whole fanzine thing going on. And that's what got me even more involved. It was like 85, 86, meeting Scott Hellig. He lived up the street too. And he was like younger than me, and he was doing this fanzine Total Thrash. So I was like, oh, this kid can do it, I can do it. You know, I was like a couple years older than him. So that got me networked with a lot of people back then. Obviously, it's like tape trading. So, you know, you're meeting people from like Poison Idea, The Accused, like from the West Coast, and then people here. Like I like got in touch with a lot of New York hardcore bands where back then were really like receptive to, you know, like doing interviews and stuff like that and just spreading the word about their music. So that was like basically my foundation, was like both in metal and hardcore. So that's basically how that turns out. That's that goes back to like 87, like Temple University. I actually ran into our original guitarist then, Todd, and we were early for admissions exams, and I saw this guy wearing a Descendants shirt. I'm like wearing like a Sheer Terror Prong shirt, whatever, and I look at him like, were you at that Uniform Choice show the other night? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, what'd you think? And he's like, sucked, you know. So like right away we were like clicked, and it was fun because they were horrible that show. They were like, this is like right after Can I Say, when they went like full like hippie. Like back then, that's what you're thinking, you know. They're like, what's this, you know? Like, so, and then we just started talking, and I'm like, what are you into? And he's like, I like the Amoebics. I'm like, and Articles of Faith. I'm like, yeah, I'm into that stuff. Negative Approach, Void, you know, Voivod, Celtic Frost. And then when he's like, Voivod, Celtic Frost, no way. I'm like, yeah, love that. And there's like 2 favorite bands, you know. So it's just like natural. Like me and him, like we're going to school all the time. You know, not same classes, but we live in the same area. So, and like we'd hang out with also Scott Hellig, like I was saying. Like Scott was also, in addition to doing Total Thrash, he was doing like bands and organizing some shows here and there. And, yeah, and like Mike Aldhouse, he was doing a fanzine at the time too. I've met up with him through Scott. Like, you know, we would go up to shows in New York together and stuff like that. Some shows up in Allentown area, and there was like, when I was living out in Lancaster County, there was like a few shows out there too, but not like it came later, like when the Chameleon started doing shows. They had, but Lancaster did have like some really good like record stores compared to here. It was like crazy. They had like Web of Sound and Stands. They were practically like across the street from each other at the time. And here we had like 3rd Street Sound and Market. And that was like the main record place you'd go to, like going through the bins there. And it's basically it, like what everybody did back then. You bought stuff, you traded tapes out, fanzines.
To your knowledge?
With us, I guess it would be like Why Die, Flag of Democracy. And there's stuff even before that, like what was it, Pure Hell? Those guys were like late 70s. Like they were our Bad Brains sort of here, you know. So you had those bands going on at the time. And then the mid 80s you had like the bands that were on the Discpan Hands LP. You had like Legitimate Reason, Homo Picnic, Dead Spot, the She-Males. That was probably my 2 favorite Philly bands, Dead Spot and the She-Males. Before that you had the Kennel Club, the Crypt, which was a West Philly haunt, like that was like a squat and dive place there. I think that's the first time I saw Token Entry was there, actually. Love Hall, obviously, you know, had all the big guys go through there. Freeze, you had Void, FUs, everybody came through there. there. That was like the spot, Minor Threat. You know, that was the main spot, and they had shows over in Jersey, like at the university, right by Camden Rutgers universities and stuff like that. Yeah, the Kennel Club was short-lived. You had Club Pizzazz, and there was a Y that we used to put shows on there too. Like I was saying, like Scott Hellig, he and the guys from the band, he was in EAB. We're booking a lot of stuff at this Y, and there was I would do flyers every now and then for that. What the heck? But yeah, Club Pizzazz, there's tons of shows there all the time. So we're saying with the uniform choice thing, like there was some real cool packages back then too. I remember seeing like a show with Life Sentence, Dr. No.
Wow.
Who the heck else was on it? It was amazing, like that show. And it was like such a dive, that place. It was like the walls and everything just condensate rolling down. I remember like the 87 Stanley Cup being in there. I was kind of torn because it was like the Accused, their first time the East Coast. I'm like, fuck, it's Game 7. You know? Yeah, that place was cool. Saw the Youth of Today there. Saw Youth of Today.
Just played
some
last
other
night.
Places. Yeah, it's weird. You don't even realize that this stuff's going on. Because I'm not so much like in the hardcore scene. Like our band never was really in the hardcore scene. We were like hardcore kids that played like weird metal.
They just kind of just adapted you anyway.
Yeah, we were just
loved you so much.
Yeah, we were just accepted by them because we didn't look like metalheads. We didn't, you know, we didn't like solo through everything. We just do it yourself, like
what was
straight work ethic.
What was the influences of Starkweather?
Like obviously Celtic Frost, Voivod, Void, United Mutation, Articles of Faith, Amoebics, Black Sabbath.
You have a favorite show?
That we played?
Yeah.
I'd say, you know, it's one that we did in Europe, because it reminded me of something like you'd see the Amoebics do. It was like out on a hill, out in the middle of nowhere in France. It was just like, it looked like they like slaughtered chickens or something there. It was like a farmland. You're up on this hill. It was real cool. It was like a DIY like generator show with Amun Ra. That was one of the most memorable shows, because you had the caravan there too. I remember you had to meet at a rail stop and then caravan from there to this remote area. It was pretty cool. Albany, Salt Lake. It's weird. Like New York City was always really good to us. We had like great connections in New York City. Like from like when we started with like Blake from Sheer Terror, who later was in Dark Side, and had them, the guys that did the Crazy Country Club shows. Mike Scandato, who was in Confusion at the time, he booked us a bunch of times there. Boston was really good to us. Yeah, well, it's funny because people will be like, yo, that record, I'm like, dude, like the Croatoan record was like, it came out when it did, but all the stuff was written like 6-7 years before that, you know, like we were writing that way in '93, you know, like some of the songs you can find video of it online, like, oh wow, like you know, so what we're doing now, it's like, it's still weird, you know. I don't know, it's like, it's just a strange thing. Our songs are way longer than most of these bands that you're like mentioning, like how they kind of like took this weird hybrid of metal and noise and hardcore. They're more compact, like verse chorus kind of stuff, whereas our stuff kind of more like winding, you know. It's like more of a, like I always said, it was like a narrative flow to everything, to how we wrote. So, you know, it's like, it was never verse chorus. It was never about like, hey, let's go, you know, sell records. Let's go, you know. We just write how we write, and we don't care, you know. It's
well, labels. You remember you were under Edison for a while.
And before that was Harvest. That's another guy, Vince Spina, who does Harvest. He's still doing Harvest now. He was in Edgewise. He's another good guy. He was the first person we put the Crossbearer vinyl out with him, and then it went to Too Damn Hype. Met from Dare to Defy. He did the reissue with extra tracks, and then John Dudek from Barry did the Into the Wire. And then between that, there was like other stuff going on, like different compilations and stuff, like the Food Not Bombs, another stuff thing for Met, and there was stuff for, what the heck, Major League Productions was it called? I can't even remember. Like just various comp tracks, the split 7-inch we did with Season of Risk, and then Candlelight and Death Wish, Hypertension, you know. Last long with labels, because we were like, our output's infrequent. You know, we do it on our time. We do it with our money first, and then if somebody wants to buy it from us, fine. You know, that's how it goes.
Speaking of, a lot of people have been actually saying a lot of good things about John Dudek. Is there anything you want to say about him? Or?
I have nothing to say about John.
Okay.
You know, it's like it's what it is. You know, that's how it went with him.
Gotcha.
You know, it's like you could see it coming the whole time. I mean, you can ask like Nikki and Jim, like anybody saw him that worked with him, Getz, everybody worked on knew where it was going. You knew it wasn't going to end good for John.
Gotcha. Did you know Mikey Wilde?
Yes. Longest time, Mikey wasn't allowed in Dobbs because he had some issue going on with when he's off his meds. Mikey went crazy. He'd go nuts. He'd like walk down the street, I'll burn you, stuff like that. But then like when he's on his meds, he's fine. He's the sweetheart, doing his artwork, coming in the stores, selling his artwork. And he literally lived around the corner from me. He lived like off of Christian Street, on between 9th and 8th. And he was a sweetheart. But we played some show at Dobbs, and I remember like after playing, he comes up to us all like wigged out, like, that was the scariest thing I ever saw. You know, like that crazy Mikey Wilde. It was awesome, you know, so that's just Mikey Wilde. Just you'd see him playing, performing. You know, Vincent Price wasn't very nice, you know, like he's just got that crazy grin on his face, you know. He was a character. He was fun. He was a funny guy. Would
you call him our Philadelphia Benny Stigma? Like he was there before anybody?
Yeah, I mean, he wouldn't have any problems telling you that himself, too. That was the beauty of Mikey, you know. Everybody knew him. He was at every freaking show, especially back in the 80s. You'd see him everywhere. This one, I don't even know if you want to print, but I remember the story with Dobbs, why he wasn't allowed in there. Apparently, some girl was, like, taunting him, saying, like, Mikey, I heard retards have big dicks. And he's like, oh, yeah? And he tried dragging her into the bathroom, and then the bouncers, like, had to forcibly remove him and ban him. That was the story there.
Other Philly bands that you think that were like kind of underrated?
Yeah, the She-Males and Dead Spot. I mean, those were the two. Especially the She-Males, and there was no recording other than that Discpan Hands like compilation track. That's like the only thing you can really find, other than if you know those guys, maybe get the demo tapes and stuff. You know, they later formed into a band, Mama Volume, when they had the vocalist changes, and the Mama Volume guys also did Angus Khan. You can sometimes find that one record from around here, like where Isaac works. Every now and then you go through the bins, you can find like the one Angus Khan record with Billy and John Graff. They were both, you know, Mama Volume, just the She-Males guys. But yeah, that was, She-Males were like the best. Like, they were awesome. Revival. I remember seeing a Swans there and then blowing up the system, like probably like 86 or something like that. We played there a few times. So like Nick's Roast Beef. There was like tons of just oddball spots, and like there was another spot like Club Pizzazz 2, which was like I think a 4th and Girard. I remember seeing Burn and Swizz there. You know, there was just a lot of stuff. The Galaxy, what was that, the Galaxy? Or what the heck was that Northeast Philly metal spot? Or Dead Spot played there with Suicidal Tendencies. I can't even remember the name of the place. Joe Hardcore's mom used to book it.
Wow.
Yeah, and there was a venue off of Arch where I saw The Accused with Brotherhood and Dead Spot. Their Pulsations out in that was like a dance club, disco, back in the 90s and 80s. And they had like Cro-Mags with Ludacris there and King Diamond playing there before. There was the Cro-Mag show was crazy. I think that's where the guys from the Uprise met Gavin, and Gavin, who later was in Burn and Absolution, he was in Uprise for a little bit. And that's a funny story too, because I remember going to school at Temple and Rob like runs into me. Hey, have you heard that Absolution stuff? I'm like, yeah, I have it on tape. And he's like, let me hear it. So we go over to his dorm, I put it in, and he's like, ah! I'm like, what? He's like, those were Uprise riffs, you know? He was like laughing, you know? Like, so there's funny stuff there you could definitely get out of Rob too. It's the same thing as like tape trading to me, you know what I mean? Yeah. You got file trading now, it's faster. So what, you know what I mean? You know, the only thing you could say that's detrimental is when it comes to recording, that's like killing some bands, like touring bands. You know, they're not making any income off of their recordings. They're making it all off of like other merch. You know, that's the only bad thing I see is like bands can't recoup recording costs. But other than that, it can spread. If you're like savvy with it, you can spread stuff out quick. You know, I just don't have any like interest. I don't care. It's like, you know, if you find our music, you find it. I'm not going to search for it. You find it. Just look around. You can find the stuff. I think it's overrated. It's with everything. It's not like, you know, like the stories you heard back in the early '80s, like out in the West Coast with like Germ shows and Dead Kennedy shows and stuff like that. It's, you know, here in the mid '80s, we had like the skinhead violence going on. I remember like shows at Pizzazz, like getting stupid there, you know, and even at the Y, there were some stupid incidents there. But you know, it's overrated. Nobody, you're always going to have it, no matter what aggressive music scene you're going to have. Like, it's generally a male-dominated thing, so you're going to run into it. It's like sports, you know? Whatever. Like I said, just for Philly, why die? You know? Those guys were like one of the originators bringing the metal into the like hardcore. Dead Spot, they were like our Poison idea. They were, you know, Motorhead meets Poison idea. They were awesome. She-males. That's all, you know, those are like my favorite, like I could say about Philadelphia if you can find the stuff. You know, it's
Gotcha.
like, it's the thing. It's like hard to like carry on a tradition where it's like not there because it was before like digital and the guys are so old, some of them now, they don't care. You know what I mean? Like at least the Why Die stuff is on CD now. You can find it and it's like download. Like you can find some of the